In today's video, we're going to be diving in to the upcoming pattern, taking a look at all of the tropical activity out there. And there is a lot. I'm sure you guys have heard all about it. Of course, a lot of people on social media, including myself, started to talk about a lot of this stuff pretty early on. And now you're starting to see the major news sources and local meteorologists really talking about these threats. Really, there's one primary threat for the United States, but there is a lot of activity out there, and we're going to go over all three of them, as well as the overall upcoming pattern as far as precipitation and temperatures for the entire lower 48 of the United States. So let's go ahead and dive into things, and we've had a couple of updates. I do believe that this one here, just as I'm starting to record this video, has been announced as officially a tropical storm now. So I think it's Humberto right there. We can see Gabrielle right here. And then we have this other low here, which we will call system number 3 for now. And that one is sitting just to the south of Puerto Rico. This one has continued to stall out. It's continued to trend a little further south. So over time, this one has just been, again, slower and further south than expected. We'll have to see what that means long term. And of course, the trend doesn't guarantee that the trend will continue. So just because it's been further south and, slower, doesn't mean it can't just ricochet further northward than expected and be faster. So these changes don't have to keep being the same way that they are. But we're going to continue to monitor this one, of course, for you guys. And there's a couple of interesting things to note here. We're going to mostly focus in on these two here. I'll do this so we can see kind of the potential areas of impact. And there's interesting impacts that happen when we have tropical systems this close together, because believe me, this is not that much distance. This is very close together. And the main thing that we're going to want to watch for is, first off, this is by far expected to be the stronger system, the one that will be out to sea, thankfully. And therefore, this one is expected to be the weaker of the two. One of the things I want to focus in on for the forecast for this system, number 3, closer to the Caribbean and East Coast and stuff, is how large is the contrast between these two systems. That is going to play a massive role in how dominant this one is. So we get our daily emojis. This one that is out to sea again, I think it's Humberto now. And that one, if it becomes much stronger than this one, number 3 down here, it could absorb the energy overall from that smaller system because they're so close together and basically just eat this one up and make this one kind of a non-threat. That is one scenario. I can't tell you really which is more likely than the others. We still don't know enough, so I'm just kind of going over the possibilities that I see here, looking at basically everything we have available to us. The other thing is, how close together are they going to be? If we look at the cones, right? Let's say this one's at the very north, kind of eastern edge of its cone, and then this one goes to the very far southwestern edge. That is a lot more distance than, let's say, I'm going to do it in white so we can see, a little bit of a difference here. But let's say this one is at the very far southwestern edge, and this one is at the very far eastern edge. That is a massive difference, these two white lines compared to those two black lines. And then we are also considering, again, the contrast of the intensities as well, for numerous reasons. Not only that it could absorb the energy, but the distance and the contrast between the intensity could cause this stronger system as it's kind of traveling through. I've seen most guidance suggest that it is going to curve, similarly to what we saw with Gabrielle here, which you can see the previous track of that one on screen. And if this one is very strong and this one's, let's say, further out to sea, we could see this one get pulled in the same direction as that one went. Again, that is going to be based on intensity and then the distance between these two systems. If they're further away and if they're closer in intensity, this one would be a greater risk to what I think would likely be North Carolina, would be the main area to watch. Of course, it's impossible to say. This could be barreling into South Carolina. This could be barreling into Florida even. We can't rule that out. Or it could be a very close call and be just offshore or something like that. And even still, again, with those two factors in mind, if this one is weaker, or at least very close in intensity to this one that's closer to the coast, and they're close or they're far apart and everything. This one still could very well curve out to sea still, but it wouldn't be primarily because of the system in that case. So again, we're watching this stronger system. This is going to be what our eyes are on. And then in addition to that, the development and really the trends with this system, right? Is it continuing to hover further south and further west than anticipated to where there's going to be a lot of distance? Or is it going to really quickly rebound to the north here and be a lot closer to where this system could kind of catch it and influence it a lot? There's a lot of things to think about here. Again, this one is developed now, but the one closer to the east coast here now sits at a 30% chance of development over the next 2 days, and a 80% chance of development over the next 7 days. So this one has really increased in probability of development here over a short matter of time. I think we started with a 20% chance with this one. We jumped to like a 50% chance a couple of days ago. And I believe yesterday we were at a 60% chance of development, and now we've done a 20% jump up to an 80% chance that we see this one develop. And I would imagine that the remaining 20% is that really this system here comes closer and absorbs the energy before this one can really get going. So that would be the scenario where you see this one really not develop. Of course, that doesn't have to happen. There's still a chance that this one doesn't develop, but that is a contributing factor without a doubt. Now, I wish I had more concrete stuff to tell you guys about. Of course, we're getting a lot of better information now with this one that's further out to sea. As it's developing, we're getting better data. We still have a day or two to go, at least with this one that is now south of Puerto Rico. But we can see that these clouds are exploding, really expanding, really climbing upward. Those darker colors are going to be taller clouds, so we can tell it's just really exploding straight up there. And this is signs of some development that's happening in here. They're already sending aircraft into there and getting some weather data from it, the hurricane hunters and all that. So we're going to get better data here very shortly. And it might be tomorrow, it might be the next day that we're getting really good spaghetti model and intensity guidance for this one. But as of now, it's still jumping all over the place and they're really spread out. So I think we're going to really start to get better data here very soon. Speaking of that data, let's just jump into that spaghetti model guidance and intensity guidance for both of these systems. And here is that most recent 18Z update for September 24th here, again for that third system. And these models do show, for the most part, I don't know where the cone was exactly, but I do know that the mean average of these is much further to the west than the cone's center. Right? So this would be much more on the very western edge of that cone. Keep that in mind. And this one, we see one purple one I wanted to note that really just rebounds and ricochets off the coast, likely influenced by a stronger tropical cyclone out there, as in that other one. And that is kind of that effect we were talking about as a possibility. For now, this system has to move over Dominican Republic and Haiti. If not, it'll be very close to the coastline. And that is going to hinder development for the next 24 to 48 hours a little bit. I think once it gets freed up here to the north of Cuba, to the north of Haiti, to the north of Dominican Republic, this is when we're going to really start to see this thing developing and get a lot more of the answers that we're looking for. Next en route would be the Bahamas, which many of these do show direct impacts. Again, this could be a still tropical disturbance. This could be a depression, storm, or hurricane. We really don't know what it'll be at this point, and this is within 5 days from now. This is 3-4 days away. So you like to have better information than that, but really there is a variety of possibilities by the time it's over the Bahamas. A couple of them are a little bit to the east of the Bahamas, which would probably be a little bit less impactful for like Nassau, Freeport, areas like that. Whereas these ones on the very western edge would be a much more impactful track for those areas. You even take note of this model that's very close to that eastern seaboard of Florida. So, you know, we do have, again, a wide variety of solutions. But once we get this storm developing and we get better data from within the storm, you can imagine that these models are going to tighten up. So we're going to see a lot of these ones that are, you know, I can't tell you exactly where the center would be of this tightening up, but they're going to come in. And that might happen with a lot of these ones moving closer to where this very far western one is, or where these very far western ones are moving towards where the very far eastern ones are. Regardless, that spread of these is going to narrow down as we get better data from the actual storm that's developing. And the more developed it is, the better the data. Looking at the intensity guidance, same thing, 18Z, September 24th here, we hover below tropical storm status all the way until the 26th, 27th. And again, that is because of Haiti and Dominican Republic. It's very different than the Bahamas. It's even quite different than Cuba because Haiti and Dominican Republic are quite mountainous. I was just in Dominican Republic earlier on this year. Very beautiful, very, very mountainous island, huge island. Cuba is much more flat. I haven't been to Cuba. I've seen Cuba from a distance, and it is much, much flatter than Dominican Republic and Haiti. So you can imagine those mountains are interfering with those mid-level clouds a lot more than a flat landmass. Of course, flat land masses are still going to hinder development a little bit compared to open water, but when you're looking at mountainous islands, that definitely chews through some of the storm's development. After it gets past those islands, we start to get this upward trend, and again, we get quite a bit of spread. The very least developing ones almost don't even get it to tropical storm status. There's one here which does a really weird dip. That one doesn't even develop it to tropical storm status at all, but without that exception, very strange outlier there, every single one does get us to tropical storm status. On the high end, and again, there's not a lot of spread while it's over the islands, they can agree on that, but once it's over open water, we get a lot of these, I should say a few, that do take us to either category 1 status there, and there's one that takes us up to category 2 status by the 29th, 30th time frame here of September. So that is a huge, huge spread. Again, this is going to narrow down. We are going to have a better idea as that better data comes in. So I think the coming days are going to be very critical for this system. Now, the guidance for what is now a tropical storm, this is the update right before it. I think the model guidance will, as of 0Z, be for a tropical storm, a named tropical storm. I'll even refresh this just to see if we have that update. We do not. But even with this, a stronger system, we can tell the spread on these. I mean, there's a few outliers, but you can see a really, really solid grouping that seem to have a really concise idea of what to expect over even the next 7 days here through hours 168. So pretty clear that the stronger storm here has a much clearer view of what to expect. Remember, our other system, these models have, for the most part, all the way over here. This one, these models have it doing this and then curving. That is the consensus right now from the model guidance. That's a pretty good amount of distance, especially compared to what's possible according to the National Hurricane Center, where this one could head much further offshore, and this one could be with some of these outliers. If it's that close together, you're going to get serious interaction that is going to disrupt the path, intensity, all sorts of things with both systems. So the further apart they are, the more you can just view them as normal tropical systems. The closer they are together, the more we're going to have to treat this situation as a very unique one, because it is, in that case, a very unique one. So a lot of complexity to this forecast with these systems for sure. The intensity guidance on this one is still spread out quite a bit. We do see two major groups, one of which takes it to either category 2 or 3 status. I'd say about half the models get us there with this one. So again, thinking high contrast with the intensity. If we see a category 3 hurricane out there and not too far away, just a little tropical storm, that is a lot of contrast. But if we get this second group that is much weaker with it, maybe strong tropical storm or lower end category 1 hurricane, that is going to be much more similar in intensity. And then at that point, you're wondering, okay, is one of these systems truly really dominant over the other one? That is the difference. If you get one up here, we have much lower pressure, and that is by far the dominant low pressure system in the Atlantic at that point, in that area at least. And then that'll have a lot of influence over the one closer to the East Coast. I feel like I'm hammering this point home, but it's really fascinating to me, so just forgive me. But I hope it's interesting for you guys, because this is a truly unique weather event that we have going on. Now, getting into the normal pattern stuff, we're going to keep you guys up to date with the tropics daily here, at least while we have systems out there, which should be for a while at least. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here from the National Weather Service has both the coasts looking near normal, at least in certain parts of them. This is for September 30th through October 4th, with much warmer, especially in the middle of the nation, and especially the north central states with well above average temperatures possible. 8 to 14 day outlook is closer to normal for the two coasts, but still above normal on this one. And then still the center of the nation, the hottest for October 2nd through 8th. Really not too far apart on both of these. I think that there's a good chance we see this kind of evolve, but time will tell, of course. Here's the past 30 days of temperature, so the last few days of August into the rest of what has happened so far in September. Cooler in the east has been the trend, and I know you're going to probably think this is surprising, but this is mostly based on the first week of September, not what's happened recently. And warmer in the west, which again is more based on the earlier portion of the month. We have a few more days of September left. We'll have to see if we hold on to some of these blues so that when we look back on September 2025, we're going to get to see what it's going to look like temperature-wise. Looking at the storminess, and I also want you to pay attention to the tropical system here because we do get some interesting stuff here on the GFS, or the European model, better yet. First off, for tomorrow afternoon, lots of thunderstorms, lots of showers in the east. I'd love to see this. A lot of people need the drought relief, and a lot of people are going to be getting it with this system here. Thursday on the 25th there, still some left over, especially in the southeast for Friday the 26th. Still not a lot has happened with our tropical system. It's still interacting a lot with Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Cuba by this point. And by Saturday, it's freed up now, finally, over the Bahamas. It's right about there to the north of Cuba. We still have some southeast precipitation. They needed a lot. So, again, this is good news. Saturday the 27th. Here is Sunday the 28th here. Now our low is starting to intensify a little bit. 1,003 millibar low pressure center is by no means a major low pressure system, but it's enough to where this could be perhaps a tropical depression, maybe even pushing on tropical storm status. You'd be surprised. You don't need the lowest pressure in the world. Looking forward towards Monday, we start to see some serious developments with this one. It's at least down to like 1,003, 1,004, something like that. It's still hovering around that territory, but we see heavy precipitation in here. The difference is that if you look a little bit to the east of it, you can hardly even see it because there's so many black lines in there, and that's because I think this is a 973 or something like that, millibar low pressure center. It's a major hurricane out there just to the east of this weaker one, and I want you guys to really take note of the effects that this has on the weaker system that we're watching for the eastern seaboard. A lot of people in my personal life have asked me, is this storm going to be a problem? And it's just kind of up in the air, no pun intended, but there is a lot of ways that this one could impact us, and there's a lot of ways that this one couldn't, and we have to rule those out, and it's going to take some fine tuning from these models and data overall. Northwest getting a little bit of a storm system there here for Monday the 29th. Also, the southeast still dealing with precipitation. As we move this forward, watch what happens. The big one starts to move eastward, and this little one, it's very close to the east, just completely follows it. It just changes course instantly. And that is the effect that two systems close together with highly, a lot of contrast in the intensity of these two systems would do. The closer together they are in intensity, but the further apart in distance they are, and that's going to give us the best chance of this weaker one to the west, closer to the East Coast, of actually impacting the East Coast, in my opinion. Anyway, as we keep going, we get into a little bit of a drier spell in the east. Also, look at this. The weaker one, I didn't even get this far on the model when I was reviewing it before I made the video, but this is crazy, guys. Totally ricochets offshore, follows the system out, but then somehow escapes its grasp and then barrels towards the East Coast. Take that with a grain of salt, seriously, and I mean it in this one, guys, for real. So by Thursday, October 2nd, it changes course. It decides, hey, no, I'm leaving. 983, so it lowers in pressure. I think that this is a good example because it starts intensifying as it's following that other system out, and then it just gets freed up somehow, and that might have to do with them, being close in intensity to each other. I don't really know. I don't even know how realistic a solution this is at all as a whole. So it's so complex that I would have to really, really study very specific situations to figure this out. But we'll see if the models keep showing weird stuff like this. Friday the 3rd, it's really moving towards the east, and then we actually see this one hit into the Delmarva area. You know what? I actually did know this happened. I kind of lied because I saw some stuff on Facebook. People were posting this model run. I didn't know it was the European model, but I have seen this solution because a lot of Mid-Atlantic people were posting about this. This is a situation, 11 days out, 12 days out. Very, very unusual tropical activity. I think that's an understatement. Take it with a grain of salt, guys. The likelihood of this even remotely following that path, intensity, and then eventually where it strikes is extremely low. So especially when you're dealing with highly unusual stuff, if we just saw a system glide in and the pressure systems and steering patterns supported it and it moved right into the Mid-Atlantic area, I would not be seeing the same thing as this. But just the fact that we see so much unusual activity with it following the system out, curving back in, unprecedented type things, you want to take it with a grain of salt for that reason, alongside the fact that this is so far out. Becomes more like a nor'easter type system for the Northeast, bringing just tons of rain. So this would obviously be devastating for like the Chesapeake Bay, areas along New Jersey's coastline, Delaware, Maryland, Long Island here in New York City, southern New England. This would be devastating for like the whole Mid-Atlantic, I guess, in other words. But the one saving grace, the one good news to this would be just the rainfall, which, I mean, honestly, this might be too much, obviously. That much at once on dry soil would be actually extra devastating, so I kind of take that back. But we wish we could get a milder system to move up, bring a decent amount of steady rainfall, and just saturate the ground. I don't know if this would be the correct thing to hope for that, obviously. GFS model, just to kind of get this second opinion. This is more of an example. I don't know if you can see it. We have this low out here, and then the weaker low never really develops. It just kind of absorbs straight into the bigger one. So that's the other kind of possibility that we were discussing earlier, where it never even really gets going because it just instantly absorbs into that larger, stronger system. And then we kind of just see the pattern unfold from there. So total precipitation is a little flawed. And for that reason, I'm actually going to move it to before that hurricane moves in. I think that that's going to be more beneficial to everybody. So this is your like 7-day rainfall. And we do see some along the East Coast, and I'm going to see if I can adjust this as well for us, just so that we, here we go. Wait, that's the total. Let's look at anomalies. Okay, perfect. So this is before that hurricane strikes the East Coast in a very strange way. We actually do see some positive notes for the 7-day period. Mid-Atlantic, Southern New England, here, Southeast, some of the Appalachian Mountain Range, as well as the Deep South. All of these areas looking really good. I think this is a good 7-day period. Really feel pretty positive about this. Okay, so that's good news. Let's look at the temperature pattern. And the European model has some cooler air at times, no true Arctic blast. The GFS model is flirting a little bit more with longer term, more intense cold air moving in. So I want to show you guys these two things. Again, up and down a little bit over the short to medium range, but mostly just warmer, flat out warmer. And then right around actually October 1st, we start to get this more backdoor cold front type activity. And these tend to be pretty potent, and they tend to be pretty exclusive for the East Coast. And the reason being, it's got a lot of mountain ranges in here. It kind of does this like bowl effect where the obviously the cold air sinks and it's kind of trapped to the east of those mountains sometimes, or at least that's kind of how it looks, and the effect that takes place. But we get it moving down the East Coast. A lot of times you can have warm air rushing up these areas, still seeing this effect. So we get a cooler East Coast here, and it really does take hold for a while. And then we get to the end here. Again, it's far out, so take it with a grain of salt. But we do see this warming trend out west, which is positive, and more of a dip over the central states, which could be indicative of cooler air that's about to move into the central and eastern states. Of course, this could change a lot here over the next few model runs. So just take it as a very, very small sign that maybe as we're moving into early October, this model's still flirting with the possibility of cooler air, but it's nothing more than that, a little bit of a sign. The GFS model, as we kind of just move through it, very, very similar. Backdoor cold front there, a little bit more intense for early October. But then we get this warm column set up, positive PNA in the west, and you start to see the cooler air diving into the central states and eastern states here as soon as like October 5th. And we see actually a second one start to move in as well around October 10th. So more major cold fronts and even Arctic blasts for early October on the GFS model run. The European model is a little bit more hesitant, saying, hey, we might have some backdoor cold fronts, but nothing really more than that yet. So a little bit of differing opinions. Of course, it's far out, so that makes sense. But we're going to continue to track everything. I know this has been a huge video, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.